Hey everyone. So in this episode, my friend JF and I discuss body image. We talk a lot in this episode about, just struggling with it and never really feeling good enough. And I get into it a little bit more about my own struggles and journey with the way that I feel about my body. The one thing though that I've learned from this work that I wish everyone would know is that we obsess so much about the way that our body looks that we're not even focused on the way that it feels to be in our bodies. So we would rather have our bodies look perfect, but feel like shit inside, or feel anxious, or feel stuck. One of the things that I've learned about my work and what I do with clients is that sex really is this practice. I mean, you can make your body look whatever way you want it to, but when you're having sex with someone, the real you comes out. And the real you shows if you can feel comfortable in your body to let go, to feel free, or do you feel anxious? Do you feel like you can't connect? Do you feel like you can't get out of your head? Me and JF, we work with clients, and that's what we teach people to do, is to use these tools. And it's really funny because I've learned so many times that when I work with clients, I myself can have more arousing experiences. And it's because we use these tools. And if you can focus on how to feel the best in your body, how do you feel the most amount of pleasure? How do you feel the most seen and safe to be with someone else and to be sexual? This is Mask Off for Mask, and I'm Vance. Hey, JF.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Yeah. Good morning so far.
Yes, great morning. I wake up early as I do. I move my body because I love my body. And I studied this morning because I had a course and went for a walk with Joy. Joy is actually just behind me. She's like on the bed.
Oh, yeah. Is that your morning ritual?
More or less, yes. I wake up. The first thing that I do when I wake up, actually, interestingly enough, that's something that I've been doing for quite a few years now. The first thing that I do is I try to always be grateful for something. Sometimes it's just like I'm grateful for my bed and to be able to sleep. But one of the things that I do when I sit on the bed, actually, I look at my hand. That's something that actually, I don't know if I remember, where it's coming from. But, basically, it's just to make a connection with your body. I make a connection with my body right with my hands because my hands are actually the thing that are going to do, a lot of job during the day. If I go to the kitchen and I want to make a tea, I'm going to grab my cup of tea and everything. If I want to play with my body, I'm going to use my hands. If I want to touch someone else, I'm going to use my hands. So that's the first thing that I do in the morning. Usually I look at my hands. Even if it's dark in the room, that's proprioceptions kind of like things where, you have to locate, part of your body. So even if it's dark, I don't really see my hands, even if there's a little bit of, it's not dark. I consciously look at my hands and usually say just thank you for my hands. Thank you to be able to touch. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. You do that every morning?
I do that every morning. Yeah. That's the first thing that I do. And then there's other kind of ritual based on, what I've worked with Ayurveda, which are it's very routine oriented, what I do with people when I work with Ayurveda with people. So yeah, I have lots of routine. I'm not going to start, otherwise it's going to take the entire podcast.
I mean, that's a good one. I always struggle with the gratitude practice. Some days it's like, I know it's a good skill to have to be able to shift your mindset onto certain things. But I also think that I'm really good at like even this morning, I think I was feeling frustrated. I had an issue with a potential client this morning. And so it just put me in this funk where I was in a negative head spiral. And so I kind of just I went to the gym and kind of tried to oh, you'll feel better. And I did yoga and everything. And I was feeling less anxious about it, but I was still sitting in the really just pissed me off. And then so when I was coming home from the gym, I think I was just fucking listen to some sappy, sad music. So I was because then it felt really easy. And I remember thinking when I was walking home, I was oh, that's actually kind of what I needed. Sometimes it's okay to feel to try not to force myself to feel good and be actually, you're kind of feeling shitty. And I've actually started to do that a little bit more with just if I get really stressed out, especially if I wake up in the morning, if I don't sleep well, things like that. If I wake up and I'm feeling really shitty, the way that I used to always do it is just make sure you get everything done. And then if you don't get everything done, you're going to get pissed off at yourself even more and be more stressed out and more anxious about it. But as long as I don't have like clients and things that are scheduled in that involve other people that I need to get done, I'll just be like, what do you have to do today? You have nothing that you have to do. Everything can get pushed to tomorrow. Let's just do stuff that's fun. And that might even just be like smoking a joint in the morning and dancing around. But I'm like, oh, if you have the ability to do this, because like, there's just no point in trying to force yourself to get back to this place of like, oh, yeah, today was such a good day. I got lots of shit done and so grateful for the day. It's like, no, you're feeling kind of shitty. What would just help you just to get
Yeah,
through the day, right? If you can.
yeah,
And I'm lucky enough that some days I get to do that, right?
yeah. And that's a good reminder because that's true that, even if like, I literally, because I've been doing that for like quite a few years now, um, having that gratitude kind of things right away, it doesn't mean that like 3 minutes later, if I stump my toes like in, the chair when I pass by the table, I'm not gonna be like, fuck it, that's a fucking day, you know? So
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's gonna be like, oh, it's fantastic day, my day is gonna be so great. No, it's just like I think it's an anchor. I see that as an anchor. I have a few
Mm-hmm.
anchors actually because I see my routines are as anchors. So I know that I have there's some moment in the day when I'm gonna go back to these anchors and that's gonna bring me back. But it doesn't mean that I mean, look at what's happening in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the weekend has been kind of like, I'm sure that everybody, because of that freaking things with the tariff in the US and everything, I'm sure that everybody's feeling some kind of like, because, that's the things, if you look at the media and you look at, the news, you might feel like anxious right away. So at least, I feel that, if I have a few anchors like that during the day, I can, bring it back to myself. And yeah, I see that more as a sort of way of coming back to myself because at the end of the day I'm like, okay, the world can do whatever it wants.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day I have the power to choose to do whatever I want for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on that stuff. I was thinking about just like the world that everything that's going on and I think we live in a culture of fear now. And so
Totally.
like the grounding the anchor thing, right, is like I always try to remind myself like if I'm getting anxious and stressed out about something is whether it's like gratitude or meditation or mindfulness or whatever the practice is, I'm like I'm okay. I'm okay, right? Because it's so easy to like, the new, like everything that's going on politically and sociologically, it's like, I don't know how you would not be able to not be in fear and anxiety. And then we have a society that has no tools to be able to manage those things, right?
Yeah. And no tool to manage those things. And again, and we're going to talk about that I'm sure, but we work with people and we found out with these people that they definitely have no connection with their feelings, or they push these feelings, or they don't want to see it, or they don't want to feel it. And that's what both of us we do, like in the work that we do with like the clients that we have, is like working on kind of like, okay, what do you feel? How do you feel? I don't know how many times, I when I work with men, especially, and asking them to, okay, what do you feel? Where do you feel it? How is it? Like, what is the quality that you have? Like, you feel, and even sometimes asking for something, and I found out that okay, you can ask me for whatever you want now, like in terms of like the work that I'm doing, and I'm like, ask for something very specific, and they are like, you can do whatever you want. No, 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 no. I want you to kind of like really own the decisions and really feel, and like in the moment, what do I feel right now, and based on what I feel, this is what I want or this is what I need. And I found out that most people are completely detached and are not used to listen to that voice or listen to that needs or wants. And basically they're gonna let whoever they are working with or whoever they are playing with, basically make the decisions. But at the end of the day, they're going to be like, fuck, this is not what I wanted. And then they're not going to like it, and they're going to feel disappointed, and they're going to feel bad, and they're going to feel depressed and anxious, etc., etc. So I always come back to that. You need to know yourself, and you need to know what you feel and basically how that things
Uh-huh.
function, because it's not
Yeah.
just like mind or body. Guess what? All of that is integrated and it's
Well,
communicating. So that's the beauty of it.
Well, that's the thing that I tell my clients is like, I always tell them it's like, because so like, for example, like me and you, we just did this workshop on
Yes.
erotic touch. And so there's a lot of, like, there's a lot of the, like, I don't know what the majority of people are thinking, but I think there's a lot of people think that sex is this, like, I just got to be this fucking stud who knows how to be hard all the time and stick the dick in the hole and get it right the first time and all this bullshit. And it's really about like, can you just feel and can you just go with the flow of your emotions and be able to like ride that wave? And so I always tell clients that I'm like, go practice yoga or meditation. Just do it. And it doesn't even have to be sexual, but it's the same skill. Like when you're doing yoga, it's teaching you the same skills that you would need to feel sexual or to have sex or to connect with another human being,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to be present, you have to feel your feelings, your nervous system has to be relaxed enough to like feel safe to be open to maybe communicate or just to notice what you're feeling, right? Because if in
Hmm.
your head you're just feeling anxiety over like, oh, I can't get hard, or oh my god, I hope that this feels good or whatever, right? So you're not really feeling things. You're in your head about what you wish the situation would be different or like where you feel like you're struggling or where your issues are coming up. But it's like that's okay. All that shit will come up. You just have to be like, well,
Exactly.
how do I feel? Like maybe I'll just do something
Yeah.
else. This doesn't feel good. Maybe I'll move towards something that does feel good or feels good for my partner. This is getting
Yeah.
too intense with the energy and I'm about to come. Maybe I want to slow it down and you can like do different things to just focus on those feelings, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And you know what? I think it's a good times now to kind of like, talk about that, how, because, you talked about like, most of the people think that, oh, I'm not good enough or I don't look good enough to, sometimes to perform. That's, what they think. And it was a little bit the case for me if I'm thinking in my 20s. So I'm going to turn 50 this year, but in my 20s or even like, younger, I was not really like in a good place in my body because I was thinking, "Oh, I'm fat. I don't look my face. I don't think that." And I knew that I was gay, but like I did not come out at that time. And so then, I was like, this is going to be like crazy. I will never be able to have contact. But, deep inside, even in that young age, I knew that I was sensual, sexual, physical. I felt these things, but I could not express it. And definitely I was like, I don't know, how to do it. And I did not really meet anyone who could help me with that. But early in my 20s, I started to like, I guess most of the I mean, not most, but at that time in the 90s, I started to go in some gay bar and starting to use. So at the time, internet was the beginning of internet. So they did not have all these apps and stuff like that. In France, actually, where I was born, there are some things called the Minitel, which is the ancestor of like, which we did not have these phones at the time. And it was a sort of like connection, that, you could make. And they had this. So funnily enough, they had this porn site, but that was really like straight oriented. And when you were going in that, you could chat with the people, and men actually was chatting with each other and connecting with each other instead of
Mm.
connecting with like a sort of like, I don't know if it was not a bot. I guess it was like really like a real person at the end, but we did not know if it was like a woman or whatever. The login was on always the login was the same for everything. It was like 3615, and then they were like a number, but 3615. So basically all these, straight, porn site, they were like 3615 Eva. And Eva was that beautiful woman with like long hair, big breasts. So people were connected, but actually you could see on the side who was connected at the same times. And so that you were making connection with the people on the side and not with Eva and whoever who was Eva anyway, because
Yeah.
that was like, maybe that was like an old man on the other side pretending to be Eva. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, you were
Well,
making connections like that, and that's how I entered like that way of kind of like connecting with other people and meet with other people. But it was always like I was hiding. I was not out. So it took me a while. But the thing is, like, I always felt like there was something in me that was like I wanted to come back. That's the thing. Even like some of my friends was like, "Why are you always touching your chest?" This is something that I always had. I was kind of like touching my chest, and I guess it was because I needed to feel. So yeah, that's how I later on came out with like, okay, I need to explore that side a little bit more.
yeah, well, just sorry, back to the chat room
No,
thing.
good.
Like I used to do that when I would have been like 13, 14, and
You
would
were
go.
so young.
It was so bad when I think back on this. So it was Yahoo chat rooms. And I think so you could go into like chat rooms for gay men or something, right? And I would go into them and my username was the name of my two dogs at the time. So it was Wolf. It was Wolf Midnight. And then so it was so I would go in and chat with these gay guys or whoever was right. I don't know who the fuck is I'm talking to. But it was I remember feeling like it was adrenaline rushy because I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm actually talking to another man. But they would all be like, hey Wolf, you horny tonight? Should really like change my name. But I would like do that sometimes because it felt like an outlet for me to actually start exploring and having the fantasy of like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm talking to this other man. And it was kind of like dipping my toes into my sexuality a bit, right?
Yeah. And that's the things, that's the thing with sexuality. As much as you can read about it, as much as you can uh try to find some informations, the thing is like you have to test it and you have to kind of like do it and you have to be physical and you have to go and do it because otherwise you will not know.
Yeah. So can I ask you something then? If so, you seem very comfortable, confident in your body, but I know that we did talk about like, you obviously struggle with body image issues like we
Mhm.
all do. But then where did you learn how to feel sexual and feel good in your body and get over all that stuff to get to that place?
Yes, that's a great question. So basically, in my early 20s, I started actually to move my body because I was not used to move my body as much. Again, because as a kid, basically, and young teenager, I remember being basically at school when we were kind of like we had like physical education's PE, and I was always the fucking last one to be picked to form a team because nobody wanted me in their team for like football, handball, basketball, whatever, because they were like, and that's true. I hated physical education, at school. Anywho,
There's so much trauma. It's like every time on Drag Race when they do the pick the teams, and I'm like, oh God, they're just doing this to trigger all our fucking high school trauma or elementary school
yeah,
trauma.
exactly. So anyway, but basically when I after high school went to university, then I studied and it was a little bit like, okay, you know what, I need to be a bit more physical and a bit more to closer to nudity and being with men in a locker room. So I actually went and I was doing some steps. It was really 80s. It was like really dancing on the step, moving on
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
dancing, and I loved it. I loved it. And I loved even more because after that, I was naked with other men in the shower. At the time, I was like, I did not like my body, but I was like looking at what was happening around. So, and I guess that, all that moving actually made me realize that, wait a minute, you know what? Moving your body, moving your energy, basically, there's shifts happening. And at some points, because, I realized too, being, in the shower with other men that, either they were not looking at me or some of them were kind of like, it was natural to be in the shower with other men. And I was like, oh, okay. So they are not kind of like making fun of me, or they are not, maybe they had some, thought in their mind. I don't know. But that's, for me, I was kind of like, I was feeling more and more comfortable, I would say. And then
Were you
really,
afraid of were you afraid when you say that were you afraid of being picked on or like
well,
teased
not
and all that
big.
stuff? What?
Yes, tease picked on because again, I was a bit chubby, and you always think that your cock is not like big enough, and all that stuff.
But yeah,
And
because you're saying that like when you were like in your 20s, right? So like out
yes,
of high school and stuff. So
yes,
when
yeah,
we're adults, but that's
yeah,
funny because like that's what comes up I think a lot with clients where so we talk about that dick size, right? Like so many guys have a lot of issues with the size of their dick, even though a lot of guys are just average. Like it's like
yeah,
you don't even have
exactly.
a small dick, it's average. And but I always think like they have so much fear and they can't even talk about the issue. But I can tell there's a thing of like when they come into work with me and they don't bring this up, but I can tell that it's an issue and because they're hiding it. And then so, but I think first of all, especially with me, like I'm a sex coach, you've come to me for this issue, like I'm going to work on it. I'm not going to be like, oh my God, look at that fucking small wiener. Like I always, I think like the fear of, do you think you're going to walk into, and maybe this does happen sometimes as adults, but I think it's sometimes we have to remember that like, I'm not, if someone judges or criticizes my body for being in, if I was in a gym locker room where like this is not the place to be judging anyone's bodies, right? But if I was in that place, is the fear so much that we have to hide ourselves from that, right? Like that I can't even enter into a space where I have to, the beach. I can't even go to the beach to take my shirt off because the fear of getting judged and criticized. Whereas adults, I would hope that we know not to do that, right? Like this isn't, we're not 10 years old anymore in gym class where, that's what kids do. We're
Yeah,
adults. And I think I see that there's so much of that fear of, I can't even show my body with a bunch of adults in hopes that they'll just make me feel safe.
yeah. No, that's true. That's the things. It's a real things, and I can see it like even in my friends. So most of my friends, everybody of my friends, some of my family knows what I do
Mm-hmm.
for living, like the Ayurveda things, but also like the naked yoga and working with men and body image and stuff like that. So I don't care anymore about it
Mm-hmm.
like that. But when I have conversation with people sometimes, even like just not even being sexual or sensual, but just being naked, for example, they're like, oh no, and even like I have some friends who kind of like I don't even like wants to be naked with myself. I cannot look at me in the when I if I see my body in the mirror, it's kind of like they are always bit like they want to hide,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
really? And like, okay, well, that's maybe there's some work to do in here because I really feel that you should celebrate your body actually, whatever size, whatever look, your body, you have to really appreciate your body because your body is doing so much. Same thing that I was saying about my hands. My hands doing so
Mm-hmm.
much during the day. My entire body is doing so much during the day. And it's because I have a body, because I have these hands, legs, cock, whatever, anything in your body. But yeah. So I think that, I really feel that you have to get in connection with your body, honor your body, take care of your body, obviously, and know your body. Yeah.
Well, I think
So
that it's
yeah,
also the like so whatever when I work with clients and stuff, or all this like body shame of I would be good enough if I had a six pack, I would be good enough if I was skinny or whatever or bigger. I mean, my thing when I was growing up was I was so self-conscious with how skinny I was. And when I think back on when I was in high school and like obviously I'm like 15, 16 years old, I'm this scrawny little boy, right? As most 16-year-olds are. And I remember like just doing push-ups and sit-ups every day to like get bigger and like working out to be like my body is enough. But I was like, I'm not even like I don't even know what I'm doing, right? So I'm not even working out or like on a plan or anything. But I see young teenage boys who are like already being like, I'm not good enough because I'm not muscular enough, I'm not big enough, I'm not strong enough, right? And it's like you're not supposed to be huge at 16. Like let your body naturally grow into what it is, right? But I would obsess with I remember one time Oprah had this anorexic woman on her show. And I think that so this was my memory when I was a kid, but this is what I would do is I'm pretty sure she did it on her bicep, but she said this thing of if my fingers can't touch like
yeah,
around
yeah, yeah,
that I'm too fat. And I would go like, I think I went like this around my wrist. And at the time I could easily like put my fingers and I was like, oh my God, I'm so skinny that I'm like comparing to this anorexic woman. And so like for me, it was, I would do that and be like, oh, I hate my wrists. Like they're so skinny. And I would obsess over it where it's so funny because like everyone has always seen me as being because I love working out, I love being fit, but I'm also an alcoholic who like needs to do those things or else I'm gonna go off the deep end. So people also don't understand that. But but I've always been like, it's not good enough. I'm not good enough in my body. And then the funny thing is that in the last year, something has shifted physically in my body. Like my metabolism slowed down. I notice that when I wake up in the morning, it takes me like about 20 minutes before I can start like feeling like, oh, I'm awake. And like I'm noticing there's a shift. Something has slowed me down. But in that process, it's made me gain weight. For the first time ever in my life, I've started to gain weight. And then this is how fucked up it is. And then I sort of realized how fucked up our brains are and how they work is I started to be like, oh my God, I'm gaining weight. I should lose the weight on my stomach. And then I was like, but then I stopped noticing my arms. And I was like, oh, you're not even noticing your arms anymore because you put the weight on the thing you did. So your brain just focused on the other insecurities instead of being like, oh my God, you gained weight. You finally did the thing that you always wanted to be able to do, which is you're starting to gain weight. And you're still picking on the things that like you don't like about yourself. Exactly. So it's like, it's lying to you. Your brain is lying to you. That's the thing you have to understand is I am not seeing or thinking, feeling, whatever. Like, that's what made me, I was like, oh, this is insanity. This is the definition of insanity. And so like now I can't listen to any of those voices because it's just trying to get me into like, you're not good enough. It's always going to be, you're not good enough. You need to do this to be better. And if you allow that voice to take over, you're just going to constantly do that for your entire life.
Yeah. I know it's absolutely true. And, I really like that, the fact that you are saying about like the mind, lying to you and, that part of you. I was working with someone last Saturday, actually. And basically that's the things, guy was in his head a lot and judging his body, judging, what he was thinking and what was happening. And so at some points, I told him, I said like, oh, look, and that's directly connected to what I've learned from yoga. That's something that I transfer from yoga to actually working sensually, sexually with men, is that you have to train yourself. And when you are doing yoga, it's really things that you can repeat yourself. I am not my body. I'm the one observing my body. I am not my mind. I'm the one observing my mind. So then you are not your mind, basically, because your mind is telling you all these things, but you are not your mind. You are the one observing your mind. And you have the choice to say like, I'm not going to observe that anymore. I'm going to choose to observe something else. So if you choose to kind of like observing your mind all the time, if you observe your mind, then you're okay, but you are not your mind and you are not your body. You are observing your body.
Yeah. And I just want to say to that point to people, if someone's listening and doesn't do meditation or mindfulness, because it took a while for me to like, to wrap my head around the concept of you are not your thoughts and you are the awareness. Because I think a lot of people are like, what the fuck? But I think the way to understand it that is a way for someone who's not in the meditation world to understand it is that everything around you in society is giving you messages, right? About who you need to be as a human being to fit in. And so your brain is picking up on those messages. And so if it's like, oh, I'm too fat or I'm too skinny, that's not you. Those are all the messages that you got from, you could look at it directly, like if your parent told you all your life, you're too fat, then that voice is your parent's voice in your head that's still there, that's telling you you're not good enough. And that's what you need to do to fit in, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what it means to be like, I'm not that thought because I didn't come up with that thought. Someone told me that. Yeah. Right. And now I have like adapted the belief that I am that thought. Right. And so that's why you have to be like, oh, wait a minute. Where does that come from? Well, that was my abusive parent, or that was just looking at like unrealistic body expectations my whole life. And that's what the thought comes from. So the thought isn't you. The thought is basically society or whatever your environment is that told you that.
It's so true. It's so funny because I I visited India last year. So my partner is Indian, and every time we go to India, we stay with his family. So I was there last year, and I did not. He was not with me. Ranjit was not with me. I was just by myself, at his mother. Some relatives were visiting actually, and in India they don't have. I mean, some family they don't have that concept of they speak the truth kind of, and being like very bland. And so that woman was there. She was
You
there
mean
with her
blunt?
blunt, yeah, with
Yeah.
her grandson. And basically the grandson is like he's chubby, like really chubby. But the grandmother was keep calling him fatty. Okay, let's go fatty. That's you shouldn't do that fatty. And in my mind, I was like, poor
Jesus Christ.
guy is kind of like you are building that trauma
How
for
old
that
is he?
13.
Oh, he's
And no,
oh,
I
that's
know,
awful.
like for confidence is like absolutely crazy. So anyway, but that's true. So and she was doing that, and in my mind, I was kind of like, oh God, I was kind of like not that, I mean, my parents work. I mean, I had the comment because you should stop eating like that, all that food shaming kind of things that I did not know that was a thing at the time, but basically that it was what it was. But anyway.
Mhm.
So in my mind, I'm like, poor thing. It took me like years of kind of like working on myself to kind of like being like, that's okay, in body image and stuff like that. But I'm like, the society and his own grandmother is kind of like putting that trauma on him. That's absolutely terrible.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like with, I mean, my messaging that I got when I was growing up that most men get is that you have to be stoic, you have to be unemotional, and you got to be hyper masculine and all these things. And it's so funny because I have worked with a lot of guys and I've slept with a lot of guys too. But I've learned that actually the more you try to put yourself into that box, the worse you are in bed because you don't know how to
Eh,
move and you don't know how to be vulnerable. You don't know how to feel your emotions and go with that. And so it's so funny because I'm like, even to the body image issue, it's like, do you think what is the six pack going to give you? Like, so that's what you want. So that's the thought. That's your like thing is I want a six pack. I want to be fit. Okay. Why do you want that? Because it's not going to make you better in bed. Like if you suck in bed now, you're going to suck in bed, even with the six pack. And it might be even worse because you're going to hold on to this, like, oh, I got to make sure I
yes,
look good. And all those things come into it. And so I'm like, it doesn't even do anything besides, yeah, people will give you more attention, but it's so superficial and it's not about you. People just want to be around like the person. So if you get really hot, they're just going to want to be your friend so that they feel better about themselves. And so it's like you have to be like, okay, well, that you can go into just trying to become the thing that people like so that people like you. But like that's not a solution to your shame or your issues and your trauma, right?
exactly. So here is the story. So basically, I was telling you that, I started to be a little more liberated, let's say, at the beginning of my 20s. So that's where I moved actually from France. As a nurse, I went to Martinique. So Martinique is that Caribbean island, and belonging to France. Basically, it's a part of France. It's a department. It's a province, let's say, of France. And I went there and worked there for 2 years. So there are lots of, I mean, every time, I had a day off, I was going to the beach, basically. And there are a few naked places where you can go and very quiet and outside. And that's something that I was like, okay, I was like looking forward to go. But what I realized actually, and that's really kind of like follow me after that, is that I went there and I was absolutely not like the top model, obviously, because again, chubby and, those things. But the thing is like, I remember I have that personality that is like, I like people, so I go and talk to people. So I realized that I went talk to people, talk to guys, and then obviously they are here for the same thing as me. They are here for like going to swim. No, I'm just kidding. They are here to go and suck cocks, right?
Yeah.
So I realized that, I was like kind of like successful in my endeavor.
Yeah.
And then I was going to the beach and I could see some people who had like the magnificent, beautiful, like the sort of body that you would worship. And they were like stuck because I guess they were like, some people were approaching, but they were like not good enough. Or, I mean, I'm in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. or and they did not play basically, and nothing was happening for them while I was having fun. And that's where I realized I was kind of like, this is interesting. Actually, it's not about like, it's not about that. It's about like here and how you manage all of that things. So after spending 2 years over there, when I moved in Canada, I started to be more interested in sensuality, sexuality, and how it play with you. And that's how I found like the body electric, basically. And I did a workshop with them, and that started everything actually, being like, just, thinking how you think about yourself, how you see yourself, how you can play with like, even like there's so many techniques, like breathing techniques to kind of like go into your body and, feel the things. And then later on, obviously, when I became a yoga teacher and, the work that I do in Ayurveda, there's lots of stuff based on like, how do you feel in your body, the quality of the thing in your body. And I use a lot of that when I work with men, actually. So that's why I'm doing what I do.
Yeah, and it's interesting because even to that thing of, what you said about the guys being like, oh, they're not good enough, or if that's what was happening, right, is that, so when I work with clients too, so I have this like same practice for myself that I have to do when I go into a session. And if we're practicing erotic touch or role play or whatever we're practicing, any sexual activity or any, as soon as I walk in, no matter what we're doing, I have to practice being present and being aware of what's coming up in my my body and my mind. So, I'll have a guy that comes into my place. I've never met him before. And I always say that, like, lots of guys are really anxious and they're really nervous about coming for the first time, and that's okay. But I'm also really nervous too. I'm getting used to it, but I still always feel this level of anxiety. Like, I used to meditate before every client, and then I realized I don't know who that person really is coming into 99% of the time, the guys are nice and it's all fine. But I have had the circumstance where guys come in, and as soon as they've come in, I've been like, oh, my body has a reaction of this person isn't safe. I can already tell that I'm going to have to be very aware of my boundaries. And so, like, for example, the issue with this morning with the potential client was someone just wasting my time, kept on asking to like fuck me and do this other stuff. And I was like, you're not even going to book a session. I'm telling you, I can't do that. Like, I don't want you in my studio to work with you because you can't even fucking respect my boundaries now. So I've learned to be like, I just have to be present with what's coming up. And I also know how to deal with that. But when I have a client come in, so whatever, we're working on erotic touch, let's say. And so I notice all the stuff that will come into my head of like what society has told me about what a body should look like or whatever. And it's coming onto this guy, but I have to stay present and I breathe and I just start to like touch and I start to allow my body to kind of get into a flow with it so that like 10 minutes into it, I start to feel aroused and enjoy the touch. And then maybe they like put their hands on me and I'm like, oh, that feels really good. And so if I have a 60-minute session, I'm building arousal and trying to disconnect from that ego, and it becomes this meditation. So for the full hour, I'm just focusing on arousal and the feeling. And I have way more intense sessions with clients than I do with guys that I make porn with, because I do this, I'm focused on the feeling part of it, right? And the only time that it's harder to get into it, which happens, is that a guy that will not be able to let go and relax into it. So I have to be more cautious and I have to be, going more softly and gently into the session. And because I can't just let go because I don't want to overwhelm my client, right? And so but it is still about being focused on those feelings. And so I'm like, oh, when you actually just do that, I can do this with anybody as long as they make me feel safe.
Yeah, that's what it is. And, I found that, also you have to adapt basically on the person that you have in front of you. The same way that, I mean, that's what I tell people. I said, like, look, if you go to a bathhouse, basically you don't have an appointment with someone or you don't have a meeting with someone. You go to the bathhouse and like whoever's going to be there might be, someone I'm going to play with, or you're just going to go and enjoy being naked with other guys. And if they have like a sauna, whatever, then you're going to enjoy the facilities. But the thing is, like, you have to be able to approach it in a way that it's, it's based in the reality, because reality is always there. That's what it is. So I tell people, you have to be able to have a conversations. You have to be able to just be in the moment, and to be able to be in the moment, you have to be in your body, feeling in your body. And if that's go to your head, thinking, oh my God, I'm too much this, I'm not enough that, and what are they going to think? Da, 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 da. They have to come back in the body and feel the body and be gentle. I really like that fact that you said about like being like soft, gentle, and going slowly, basically, because that's the thing, sometimes, because that's what it is, sensuality, sexuality, we also have that rush that come with it, and it's such a good rush, right? It's nice to feel that rush, but you also have to be able to control that rush, because you don't want to go and jump on someone and start kind of like doing something, and people are gonna be like, well, this is too much. So that's the beauty of like all of that we are talking about. It's because if you are able to think about that stuff, and it takes some time, but when you are able to feel, think about it, how does it goes, and what does it do, then you are able to control that, and you're not going to be like, holy shit, I'm going to go and suck that cock right away. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's an approach. That's and like everything's like, when you go and let's say that you go and meet a friend for a beer, for example, it's you go and meet a friend for a beer, but the thing is like, you don't go drink the beer and then get out, right? You go, you meet your friends, you have a chat, you want to catch up, and then you drink the beer. But it's not just kind of like, this is not just, so when you go to a sauna and you want like, I want to get fucked, why not? That's great. It's not just, I'm going to get fucked. There is a sort of like, there's a scenario to kind of like, that has to kind of like happen before I'm going to get fucked.
You know what? It's funny as you were saying that, because when you were talking about like the beer example, and then you, I think you'd switched into the sauna and you were like, hey, I'm going to go and get fucked. Because when you were saying the beer example, I was like, well, for me as the alcoholic, I would go and be like, no, I'm drinking that beer, like down in that beer. I'm going to get fucked. That is how my mind works. But it's interesting to think about this, because I understand like my addiction part of my brain, the voice, the thought of that brain is the thing I have to override. Because if I let that go, it's like, my God, I want the beer, I want to feel drunk, I want all that stuff, and like, yeah, that's
okay.
overrides everything. But I think guys do it too when it comes to sex, where it's like, yes, it is a dance of connection, of cruising and all this stuff, where you have to be okay with rejection. You have to like be respectful of a person. You can't just go up to someone and jump them, right? Like the thought in your head is, oh my God, I'm so fucking horny, and this is like a lot, and I'd never get laid, so like I'm gonna just jump on this person. Or even it could be something like sliding into someone's DMs all the time and like telling them how hot they are, sending unsolicited dick pics and things like that. Like I notice there's a lot of this, guys don't understand boundaries of, they're just like, I want it now. And it's like, you have to override that though and connect to the other person. So that ego voice, like my addict voice, is the one that's telling you to just get it, because there's like a feeling of, I'm not, like for me, the addict voice is like, drink, because like you don't know when you're going to drink again, and like, oh, you don't have a beer right in your hand, so you got to drink again. Whereas a lot of guys who don't get intimacy a lot or ever are in these spaces of sexuality, and they don't know how to chill and do the skills that it takes to be respectful of other guys. So they do the jumping on guys, and because there's a thought of, if you don't do this now, when's the next time you're going to get it? You're not going to get it, right? And I think guys are really desperate for sex, for intimacy, for touch. And we don't understand that, hey, this is a skill that you have to learn, because then you go into harassment territory sometimes, right?
We have a fantastic job, you and I, right?
Yeah.
We meet with people and we teach them how they're going to have sex and how they're going to enjoy their body. And because there's a way to do that. And that's the things. I really like, when I do sometimes, that you were talking about frustrations, I work on that. I love doing that, actually. So when I do a workshop, for example, with massage, touch exchange, or, when they are working naked with other guys, especially like, let's say that it's a 2 hours workshop, like towards an hour and a half, sometimes, things start to build up. And if they have like, sometimes, these guys, they found someone they really like, and they are kind of like they really go into the exercise, and things getting really hot, and and you can feel like they're into it, and it's beautiful to witness. And then usually what I'm going to do is that, okay, I'm going about to frustrate you in 3, 2, 1. You stop what you are doing and you get out, and I'm going to match you with someone else. And I can see that there's some people who are kind of like, oh, but you're in the middle of something. And I'm like, no, 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 you stop, 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 stop. And that's part of the exercise, like learning, like that's frustrations. And usually what I do is that before the end, whatever, I rematch them, because I'm not mean.
Yeah.
So I rematch them, and they can enjoy each other, because that's so beautiful when you are, especially beautiful when that you're, especially when we have a group of people, and that some people in the group are really kind of like into it, and they almost like forget the rest of the group. It's like, oh, this is so cool, because this is what you want. You want to be able to kind of like forget about what it is, and they are really in the moment doing whatever they are doing, really focusing. That's a celebration. That's
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Well, that's like the practice that I think that the reason why I was able to that I haven't had many issues when it comes to sex is because, so when I was a kid, I was still obsessed with Britney and Madonna. I think so.
I
I
know
always
that.
say this, that yeah, most people know that. I'm wearing my Britney t-shirt today.
See, get you.
Yeah, so but I think when I watched Britney, and there was something about feminine sexuality that wasn't this thing of I was comparing myself to. So if we like think about how we saw male sexuality in media and movies and all that stuff, is it was very much this thing of power, that if the Bond guy is fucking the hot Bond girl, there's not much about the girl besides the fact that she's hot and he's fucking her. But it's not about her pleasure. It's not about connection. It's about, to be a man means you just got to fuck and you can take whatever you want. And it's a power thing, right? And so I think a lot of times we get into this comparison, and I need to try to be that way. Whereas I was never comparing myself to Britney and Madonna. I just saw two women who were so in their bodies when they performed, and being so open sexually, especially in a culture that didn't allow and still doesn't allow women to be as open with their sexuality. I was like, this is power. Like, they're not doing this because they're the Bond guy who can fuck whatever he wants. They're doing this so that they feel good in their bodies. They're doing this for pleasure and for joy when they dance. So like when I started dancing, just free dancing, like I dance every morning when I get up,
Yeah, that's
is that
cool.
when I was dancing to them, there's this point where like I always try to get to it every day where, I'm kind of moving, but I can tell I'm still in my head, or I'm just still waking up and my body's still a bit like stuck in places. But there's a moment where this like freedom happens, and I feel like a fire ignites in me. And I'm like, even if I'm not hitting all the dance steps, like it feels so intentional, and like something slows down almost. I'm explaining this so weird, but something like slows down in time, and I'm so connected and aware of my body and how it feels. And so I'm not thinking about the way my body looks. I'm just
Yeah,
so in my feelings. And I recognize that's the same thing with sex. The practice of sex, you want to get to that place where you have completely let go and just are in your body. Because you don't think when you dance that you're like, the beat's about to pick up, so I guess I'm going to move a little bit more like this.
yeah,
Right? Or you don't think like, well, lots of people do think I look stupid, I look awkward, so I don't want to move too much. You just do it. And then you learn that, oh, wait, yeah, I can dance and move my arms up above my head and no one's going to fucking say anything. Who gives a shit? And so you do it, but you feel those invisible edges where like it's almost like a barrier of, oh, my body, there's something not allowing my body to feel free. And usually it's, what do other people think of me? Or so if you're having sex with someone, it's like, oh God, what is he thinking about the way that I look or whatever? And it's like, you have to get back into your body and try to connect to that fire. And it just takes like moving, making noise, breathing, like just do everything you can with your body
yeah.
that is not just being frozen stiff and like in your head, right?
Exactly. It's an everyday practice, basically. You
Mm-hmm.
have to, if you connect with your body, your mind, especially your body, like every day, chances are that you will be able to know yourself enough. So then when you know what you want and you know what you need, then that's going to be easier. It make me think about, and it's so important, like the thing that you live every day or you are subject to. Uh, you can see that's really like a great impact on you. So last week, actually, I worked with someone, um, and it's so funny because and it's come with experience. I'm sure that you have experienced that too. I was with that person and we were working one-on-one. And basically, at the beginning of sessions, there were like some breathing involved, there was some touching involved. And basically, at some points, I said, like, I want you to ask me for something like specific, like, put my hands here, do this, do that. But I want you to be specific. And the guy's like, oh, you can do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I want for the moment. We're going to come back to that later. So later on, when I ask him, I say, okay, this time I want you to tell me something very specific. And he said, like, basically, so we were naked. I want to feel the heaviness of your body on my body. Let's do that. So we did that. And so we started to move because, that's part of the work, basically. And I could feel like there were like that little, small, very like thin voice coming out, like something. And I was like, holy shit, there's some things blocking here. I could feel like, they were like, he cannot like speak, I cannot express himself. So I said like louder. I said like, go louder. And in my mind, I was like, I don't know why, but I think that's what it is. So I told him, it's like, louder. I want you to kind of like make some noise. And he was like, I was like, no, make some fucking noise. I was like, it's kind of like, make some noise. And it started making some noise and it was gradually going up and up. And it's kind of like, they're like a sort of like a sort of big orgasm. And so at the end, when we debriefed, actually, I was like, what was that? Voice that came out? It was so beautiful. I could see you. That was you at that moment. It was not like the person who came into the studio, before our sessions. It was you, that person. And it was like, okay, I'm at the end of a relationship. I've been married for so many years with that person. That person's coming from a culture of like repressed. And every time we have some intimacy, that person always asked me not to kind of like any noise or anything because it was too pornographic. I was like, holy shit. That's actually not pornographic. Noise is noise, and making some noise. I always like sometimes tell people, like, for example, if you kiss, make some noise. It's not just it's like, that's,
yeah.
It's part of the things that's built actually the intimacy built actually that, that the warmth, that's coming into you. And he was like, I said like, I know that, I want to make some noise. I want to express myself. But basically my partner has been telling me not to, because I said in my mind, it's kind of like, if I make some noise, it's dirty, because in his mind, porn is dirty. And I'm like, porn is not dirty. There are porn that are really good porn that, you can look at and you can enjoy, and it's really well made. It's not all the porn is dirty. The story that you've been told, or, the thing that the external signal that you receive, actually, it's so, it has an impact on you. But also that guy knew that inside of him, he wanted to make some noise. And it was like very, very like thin at the beginning, and very like barely could, hear like the coming up. But then, because he was working with me and I was allowing him to kind of like, I want to see you. I want you to be yourself. Make some noise. That came out like brilliantly. Loved it.
That's so like, just, I mean, the messaging, the direct messaging that he got, right? It's so fascinating to see how much of a stigma there still is on this. Like, I always think too about, the work that we do. And sometimes I wonder what like regular, Joe and Janet think of like what this work is, or if there's judgment or there's stigma on it, or even just sex work, right? Even just sex work and doing any of these things. And I think it's so ridiculous because it's like, we all have sex. Well,
It
most
is
of us have sex.
ridiculous.
It's a normal, natural part of life. Yet we still have so much shame surrounding it, and judgment and gender stuff that like only men are allowed to do this, only women can't do this, and it's all just bullshit. That's what I'm saying.
It is
That,
bullshit.
like, that's why I say that like the hardest thing in life is just to be authentic, to be yourself. Because honestly, to be authentic is not like the the road to being yourself isn't filled with people praising you and being like, wow, you're so amazing, you're so authentic. I think people think that that's what it is. But it's really about like, hey, no, I'm going to speak up when someone treats me like shit. Or when someone says that I'm dirty because I like sex, I'm going to maybe not be friends with that person. It's things like that, right? And people don't understand that. And it goes back to kind of this body image thing that I see with gay men where they try so hard to have this perfect body. But I'm like, you've changed yourself so much just to fit in and be liked that you're just doing it for the superficial likes instead of actually being authentic and letting fewer people see you for you are. But the way, how much better that feeling is to be seen for who you are and to feel safe to be yourself is, that's why you do it. It feels blissful.
It is blissful. And that's why, I feel like, part of me is like so sad, as a nurse, and interested in healthcare and, how people are treated and everything. I'm convinced that we should have brothel, actually, we should have bordello open that are managed by people like us. And, and because that would make the world a better place. And there would be less, because, there's so much frustration, sexual frustrations for some people because they don't know how to handle it. And they just need to be educated. That's it. Education is key. But yeah, well, if someone from the conservative is listening to us, which I doubt they will not listen, but anywho, they must be like, these two, we need to do something about them.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I like doing all this work is just to kind of offend conservative people. I have a lot of trauma against all my stuff comes back into my shitty childhood where I kind of had this fuck them, I don't give a shit attitude. But also going back to Madonna, one of the reasons why I loved her is because I got off, or I could tell how she got off on being herself and pissing people off. And so it was like, oh, if I'm just pissing off people, I know the work I'm doing is important. It's right. Being myself is important. It's healthy. And so if you don't like that, go fuck yourself. I hope I offend you.
Yeah, and it's so funny that, you're talking about Madonna and, there's a sort of, it's remind me of something that's come to me. So basically when La Isla Bonita came out, I must have been 10 or 12 years old or something like that. So yeah, even maybe younger. Anyway, my friend Caroline and I, we didn't grow up in France, in Brittany. That's a very conservative place, by the way, very church place. But we had no clue, what the meaning of it. I did not even speak English. So it was a sort of what we called yogurt English. So the only word that was coming was La Isla Bonita. But, I did not know last night I met San Pedro, but we did not know that because, I could not speak English. So I thought, well, we were talking and we were kind of gesturing and dancing. And we were doing that, in front of our parents and everything because our parents did not know what it was, but they knew that there were some things kind of not wrong because they were kind of don't touch yourself like that, this is not good. And we were kind of what's the problem? Because we were kind of innocent. Yeah. But it was there was something very liberating about it. And yes, growing up after that, you look at that and you're like, oh my God, yes, she was offending the church. The conservative was I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. That's and I think that's a way to kind of especially for young people, once we found the trigger, what's going to kind of push the button of our parents or anything, you go for that.
Yeah. And I love how you use that word liberating, because that's a good way to describe. So the reason why we want to feel pleasure and feel good in our bodies is because it does feel liberating. You might get judged, criticized. People might not like you for being so loud with yourself or whatever, but it feels liberating. It feels like freedom. And that is so much better than just having people like you because you're easy to like because you don't push anyone's buttons.
Exactly.
Where can people find you?
So basically, I work from the Awaken Studio TO in Toronto, but the best way, I think it's on Instagram. I have that JF at Awaken Studio TO. I might change the handle at some points, but that's where. And you can book, directly you can DM me or book a time with me. And I teach naked yoga at the studio. I do some workshop. And I hope we'll do some more workshop together, Vince, because I liked actually working with you.
Yeah, definitely. With that workshop after too, also what we do is we just create spaces where we can create a container of safety as best as possible for everyone, where they can be free to explore and play and be in their bodies. So it's funny when we describe whenever I'm working with guys and stuff and we're talking about different ways to touch, different ways to stroke a dick or whatever. I'm like, there's no the simple way to put it that I always tell people is there's no right or wrong. Check in with your partner. Get your partner to tell you how they want to be touched. Your partner has to teach you. But I think what we do that is very specific is we create these spaces that feel safe for people, for gay men,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Well, I have one more question though before we go.
Sure.
What are you most excited for right now in your life?
Oh, you know what? You're going to think it's crazy, and I hope, but the most exciting thing is I'm getting older. I'm getting older, and I don't know, what's coming, because you never know. But what excites me is to see working with some guys who are like in their 70, 80, and they can still have a fucking hard on, and they can still have like some pleasure. And some people who cannot have a hard on, but they still have pleasure. And that's exciting me. That's really exciting for me because I know that I'm getting older, but I have the tools to kind of like, work with pleasure. And that's super exciting because I know that there's so many people, especially like around my age, some of my friends who are turning 50 and they are kind of like, oh my God, I'm older, whatever. And I'm like, and so what? What's the problem? Like, it's exciting to
I
get
get it.
older.
So
I'm having like, to be honest, I'm having better sex now than I was having when I was 20 because I was like completely innocent and I was completely that, stuck in that kind of like body. And now my body is kind of like, come baby. You know what
I
I
know. I
mean?
mean,
So
that's the thing is
yeah.
you really have to get over to your friends who are afraid of turning older, for anyone who is, right? Like you have to not care what that voice, that thought in your head is society
Yeah,
being like, whatever, you're not good as you get older, but it's not true, right? And you just have
it is
to.
not true. Yeah. And that's the beauty of things, that when I was referring to porn and porn being dirty, you see some porn and you see sometimes some porn where there's some other people into porn and doesn't mean that they have to perform or anything. I'm thinking of one of the video, that I've seen where that older guy with the younger and, there's the interactions and everything is like, it doesn't need to be like, fucking, sucking, whatever. Yes, it happened, but there's so much stuff that can happen in between, and that's the beauty of it.
That is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this, JF.
You're welcome.
And let's do another workshop soon.
Yes. All
Yes.
right. See
All
you
right.
soon.